Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another OSR Tabletop with myself, DM Bloodworth. And as you probably saw in the title, I am going to be talking about Advanced Dungeons and Dragons for the modern player. Now, I've been doing a video series on my channel for quite a number of weeks now, and basically going through like a step-by-step process of how I would run an AD&D First Edition campaign with players who have never played AD&D before, whether it be First or Second Edition. And I was really trying to focus it in on modern players. I'd love to get a number of players who have only been familiar with either Fifth Edition or Pathfinder Second Edition, or even players who have never played a tabletop role-playing game before. So I started crafting my campaign and put the word out there that I'm going to be running a campaign utilizing Roll20 plus Discord for the voice, the combination of both the features of Roll20 and voice through Discord. And so during the course of doing some of the previews of that campaign, I have had at least one commenter, say, hey, you know what, I'd rather have you talk about the campaign itself rather than just spending time with Roll20 and how you're utilizing Roll20, which I don't fully agree with, because I think it's kind of important to show kind of the mechanics of the VTT that I'm primarily going to be using. And it was a prep video as well, but I did want to give my subscribers and others passing through the opportunity to talk about the topic in general. All right, and the topic of bringing new players to older editions of any game system that you're running, but in particular here, I'm talking about bringing new players to AD&D First Edition, which is it's probably my favorite edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and I know that a lot will dispute whether or not it is the best or whatnot. That all comes down to personal taste, but I always just gravitate back to AD&D First Edition. Now, is it the best edition of any of the D&D centric games out there? No, I think that there are others that are better mechanically, but does it give that same essence of Dungeons and Dragons? And I don't find that other game systems or additions beyond AD&D First Edition quite capture that Gygaxian feel, and perhaps that's nostalgia, but to me at least, I still stand by my thought that it's the best version of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons that's out there, and it's probably the essential D&D that is out there as well. So to me, or I actually should say quintessential D&D that is out there. So I'm going to be checking in, and if anyone wants to jump in to the chat backstage and talk about this subject, then you are welcome to do so. I am putting the invite in there as I speak, and there it goes. So if any of you have have introduced younger or newer players to a tabletop role-playing game, then I'd love to hear about your experience doing that as well. And it's something that I've been really pushing, both on my channel and then just in general at conventions and whatnot for us as game masters, especially public game masters. And I consider if you are advertising on the internet to bring players to your table, you're a public game master as well. But that includes also those of us that play home games online, go to local gaming shops and play there, or at convention spaces as well. So any level of experience you have with those things, you're welcome to come in, join in the chat, and I can have up to 10 people on this thing, so you're welcome to join in and share your experiences as well. So getting back to my own particular game, I already have 7 players who have kind of signed on. I'm still waiting for 2 others to 2 of the 7. So players 6 and 7, let's say, that haven't popped on in the last couple of days to create their characters and whatnot. We're planning on doing session 0 this Friday evening, and but it's not going to be session 1 until 2 weeks thereafter. So we're playing. I'm going to at least start off this campaign every other week, unless I see the interest is really, really high for all of the players, and then we will move to every Friday evening and get the ball rolling. So for at least this next session or 2, I will be running it bi-weekly and go according to that. So we'll see how that turns out. I have at least one player who has stated that he or she, I'm not quite sure of the gender of the individual, is just 14 years old and might have a friend tag along. And that's, I'm really open for that, because that's one of the individuals, I believe, if I remember some of the posts here and there, has no experience with tabletop role-playing games in general. I only have one player who may have played AD&D first edition, and I have one player that played second edition, never played first edition. So there's only potentially 2 players that are somewhat familiar with AD&D first edition, and then the rest of the potentially 7, they are either not experienced at all with tabletop role-playing games, or certainly not with AD&D first edition. Hey, Takato, how's it going? And Takato, you are certainly welcome to jump in if you wish to, and share some of your experiences. And I know that you run quite a number of games as well, and you've probably attracted to your table some people that are much younger than what I have over the past couple of years. I have had some teenage players over the last couple of years, but not on a very consistent basis. So I'm hoping that changes with this upcoming campaign. I'm hoping that the 14-year-old comes along and plays well, and primarily gets as much out of AD&D first edition as I can possibly dish out to him or her again. I'm not quite sure. I'm pretty sure it's probably a male, but I'll go based on not knowing right now. So Jason, BX is a good place to start before diving into AD&D for new players, and I would typically agree with that. However, I pretty much started with AD&D first edition. We might have briefly played we might have briefly played Holmes Edition before we moved to AD&D First Edition, and I moved on to AD&D First Edition as a 12-year-old. So, although I do agree with you that that BECME, D&D BECME 1983 is probably the best to introduce somebody to the hobby in general. You can definitely bring people who have never played a tabletop role-playing game into Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and get them focused primarily on role-playing first, and let the rules come a little bit later. So it will work out. I'm fairly confident in my ability to introduce people to the system. Because I've done it for so long, and my own experience is very similar to that as well. I'm on the road right now, but heading home. All right. Well, again, I should be on for at least another hour, hour and a half, or so. And so hopefully you'll get home, have some dinner or whatever, and be able to join in. So let's see. The Osric book is also easier for new players to absorb. And I have the Osric as well, but I am looking to bring them in with the actual books, all right, and not with a modern, a more modern interpretation of it, not with a retro clone, not with an old school Renaissance version of of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition. I want to bring them in to a very slightly homebrewed, but I want to bring them into an old school revival Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition, which means they're actually playing the system 98% of the way that it was written, and only making some minor quality of life changes to the rules or omissions or whatnot, for that experience to be as I know someone attacked me, or not really attacked me, but criticized me for using the word authentic. But that's how I look at it. I want to give them an authentic experience with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition. I started with AD&D at the age of 9. We didn't know what we were doing, but we had fun. Yeah, and it's the kind of system that you'll eventually pick up, and you'll even become, especially when you start really young, you'll even become somewhat of a rules lawyer along the way as well, and start thinking, and then you'll get to the point where you'll start omitting certain things, certain aspects of the game system that are just unnecessary or not well put in the layout and formatting of the books as well, and you kind of skip over those things. So yeah, I think that there's a combination of possibilities when you are introducing new players to a game system that is a little bit complex, but not exceedingly well. Like, I don't believe that AD&D First Edition is as complex as 5th Edition. I think 5th Edition is a lot more complicated than AD&D First Edition. Certainly, the character sheets and the action economy and whatnot and so forth, with all of its features and actions and bonus actions and legendary actions and this and that and the other thing. I think that is a very, very complicated system, and it shows in the combat, and how combat is almost universally believed to be very bogged down and very just very long-winded to run a combat sequence, no matter how simple you might think it is. But once you add 4 or 5 or even 6 player characters into the mix, and with all of their different layers of actions that they can take, then it really does bog the system down, in my opinion. And I've played it several times to know this, as a player, and seeing how that works. And as a player, when I've had dungeon masters who have trimmed out a lot of that, and those ended up being better experiences overall than those where they kind of stuck to the rules of 5e more closely. I can say that with a good deal of confidence that that system-wise, comparison-wise, AD&D is not as complicated as 5e is. Hey, Mark, how's it going? Good evening to you as well. Yeah, I mean, I'm not criticizing you, Jason, or really strongly disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that there's ways in which to bring individuals into AD&D First Edition that is going to make it not too complicated, not too hard for them to pick it up and to move forward. Not unless there's a huge generational difference between Gen Xers like myself and the current generation, whatever it's, I guess Zoomers, I guess they call them. Maybe it's not as much of a difference. I'm not sure. I don't anticipate that it is. I think that they should be able to take a bite out of this apple and still appreciate everything going forward, and pick it up in pieces as they go along, and do quite well with it. So let's see. I play World War II mini game Bolt Action by Warlord Games. I've heard of Bolt Action before. Years ago, they put out a one-page PDF for younger kids using the Green Army or Lego guys. Yeah. And I'm sure that that they can, if they want to, look at some of those others like Osric and others. As Jason mentioned, that makes it a little bit easier for them to absorb, but certainly want to use at the table the AD&D First Edition books. And that means that when I'm running my games, I actually I'll have the PDFs on my screen and I'll be able to refer to those as well. But I actually like to have the books on my table as well. I like to be able to reference those. Sometimes I find it's a little bit faster to do that. And again, I really do believe in the imagery and the atmosphere that you create when the players see that you're using the actual physical copies of a game, whether you're at a convention or you're even on your home game, and they say, hey, you know what? He doesn't just have the PDF, he has the book. And I know I got criticized recently for making that comment as well. I also, that's where the authentic came from. And the issue with my saying that's authentic is that I'm not slighting anyone who just has the PDF of something. I'm just saying my personal preference is to have both. Okay, so I will also be doing a the second half of the year giveaway for memberships on the channel. So being that there's only about 10 days left or so, I might do I might hold off on those, because I am expecting Tom Wilson from ShireCon, and Tom also just started a new Kickstarter for his Hyborian Age series of Shadow Dark adventure modules. So I might hold off on those for when I'm interviewing him, which might be sometime next week. So I might hold off on those. But anyway, looking at some of the comments here, if I missed any and I will jump in. So again, if anyone wants to jump in on this conversation and talk about your own experiences with running older edition games, and again, it doesn't have to be Dungeons and Dragons. It could be something else. I have run second edition Call of Cthulhu for people. I've run Bushido at conventions, and the players really loved that game system. Now that's a crunchy system that needs to be tweaked and made more accessible for a modern audience, because the rules mechanics of that are quite quite challenging to actually wrap your head around them in some cases. But the gameplay, the action, the combat of it is just so, and I'll use the word again, authentic, but I mean it in the truest sense of the word. That's an authentic Japanese, the shogunate time period kind of game system. I mean, it really does lock down that experience, and it really does capture that the theme and the feel of it as well. Bushido is a phenomenal game system, and you could still probably get it for a fairly decent price on eBay as well. So let's see, Shadow and Son. Hey, how's it going, Shadow? And thank you for those those wishes. So last night, I'll just say, so last night we were in the process of playing Shadow and Son, and my other regular players were in the process of starting our Amazing Adventures campaign. And then our family dog, Bella, started to, she went into some kind of a distress, and she was having trouble panting and whatnot. And so my wife was like, I'm going to call the animal hospital and see what's going on. And so I had to shut down, I had to step away from the game real quick. And by the time that the animal hospital was about an hour away, and by the time we got there, and we were there for about 30 minutes, and she had passed during that 30 minutes or so. So it was, something very, very quick. 11-year-old dog, and she just had heart failure. And so it went that rapidly from being fine to passing. So it was a tough night, especially since it was my wife's birthday as well. So it was very much like our dog. I mean, our dog was she was a show stealer. Anytime that she had to upstage whatever. And so it was very, very almost kind of in a dark sense of humor way. It was like her way of saying, I'm going to make this day about me too. And my wife is good with that. My wife was perfectly fine with that. We were glad that she did not pass at home, but rather in a controlled situation where they could make sure she was comfortable. And it is what it is. So anyway, Shadow, thanks for your best wishes last night, as well as everyone else that chimed in. Takato, same thing. So let's get back onto the subject at hand, and that is running things. Warhammer Fantasy. Anyone? I played Warhammer Fantasy, if I'm getting your abbreviation correctly. I played Warhammer Fantasy back when it first came out. So that would be in the early 80s, let's say. And although I love the the art and the aesthetic of the book, and it was a big hefty book, but at a certain point, I just didn't like it compared to AD&D First Edition. Hey, Shadow, how's it going?
Hey, not too bad. Again, sorry for your loss, man.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. It was it was a long night too. It was a pretty rough one. But
You can't even
yeah,
imagine.
it's all good. Sometimes when those things happen, it's all for the best as long as they pass peacefully. It's fine.
Me and the guys, we hung around for better part of an hour, not knowing, but kind of fearing the worst, and you know, hoping you'd return. But you know, you got a loyal bunch of players, so
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We didn't get home until about 12:30 on my time, so 12:30 Eastern time. So, um, and then my older daughter had to go to work at 5, so she was trying to stay up as late as she could until we got home. But it is what it is. We will pick it up on Tuesday, where we
yeah.
left off on Tuesday, and
Everybody, even a certain person who was kind of iffy at first, we're all into it, ready to play. It was my number one rated game of last year. Can't wait
Mhm.
to actually see how it plays so I can run it. But you
Yeah.
were you were talking about Bushido, and I've been looking at a lot of old fantasy games, unlimited games, because I'm a big collector, and I wanted to ask you, were there any other FGU products that you'd recommend besides, maybe the original Villains and Vigilantes?
I think Sword Bearer is also,
I've got that.
yeah, Sword Bearer. I love that game. We played Sword Bearer set in the Gore series. You know what I'm saying? So we were,
Really, Gore?
yeah, yeah. So
I'm just
that's,
reading those. I'm just reading those for the first time
oh
because
yeah,
I had, yeah, I had a. I'm in a writing club where we write short stories, and we were tasked to write a naughty story. So I
yeah,
said, well, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to go with the one thing that I've heard of, and that was Gore, and I'm going to
yeah,
book like 3 out of like 30. So,
yeah, yeah.
um,
There's too many. I never read beyond probably like the first 7 or 8 books or
okay,
so. Um, but yeah, I mean, Gore is a great setting, especially if you're, a
it
bunch of
really is,
teenage
and
boys. You're a bunch of
in the
teenage
first.
boys with, just like the whole idea of, of the edginess of Gore. I mean,
It really is tame compared to today. If you think about it, at least the first couple of books, I'm like, this is just uh, he wrote it to try to slam Edgar Rice Burroughs and wanted to
mhm,
write Mars a little better, and it to me it's just different, and
yeah,
it's really not that. Maybe it gets worse later on. I don't know, but I'm going to stick with
it
reading
would
them.
never fly today.
Yeah,
It
well,
would
some
never
things
fly
wouldn't.
today. You
Well,
know,
you'd be surprised in the romance air quotes section of your local bookstore. You might be surprised. I really don't know because it's not my
yeah, I
job.
don't know either.
Uh,
It's just and for anybody not familiar, I mean, there is slavery, there is misogyny, there is
BDSM.
it's very brutal. It's very, um, you know, there's a very, very brutal theocracy kind of background to it as well, and so on. So you
But
have
wasn't it in like the second book that there was the full on matriarchy going on as
Well,
well?
yeah,
So
but again, there was. I mean, it's been decades since I've read them. And decades since I played Swordbearer. But Swordbearer was again, the combat of it was just very, pretty brutal, and much less forgiving than even AD&D First Edition was. So. And that's what I really liked about it. So that's a great system, and you can still get that's still printed like,
I is yeah, there's an eBayer that's got brand new copies of it for like 20 or 30 bucks. I'm
no,
actually
you can
looking
still
at
get
their
it from the
Wild
website.
West.
Like I got it from, I'm pretty sure I got it from Fantasy Grounds Unlimited, and you can still get it from their website, and they're still like,
Maybe
even
that's
though
what it is.
that they are defunct, you can still get stuff from them.
Yeah, because like I said, I think they have a game called Wild West, which I'm looking forward to
Hmm.
picking up. And you're one of your viewers, Jacob.
Yeah.
I have bought and resold Space Opera twice because
Hmm.
it was just so brutally complex, and I don't have time for a spreadsheet game. But if that's what you're into, then you might like it. I'll probably buy it a third time and just never open it, just so I can say I have it. I'm more of a traveler guy, so
Let me try to tackle this question with Teresa here, and welcome, Teresa. So, what do modern players want? Um, well, first of all, they're not a monolith, right? So, I
mm,
want to
no.
set that out. That not all modern players, and they're not all, you know, 13, 14, or even 20-year-olds either. You
Nope.
have people that are discovering this hobby in their, mid to late 20s or even 30s or possibly even 40s. So I think that's probably a little more rare.
Yeah.
And then there's modern players that might have they played way back in the day, and then they took 30 almost 40 years off, and then now that they're retired, they're like, oh, you know what, I want to get back to doing some of my hobbies from my youth, and they come back into it. So modern players, number one, are not monolithic. Modern players, I think, in comparison to old school players, let's say, I think that they have a different approach to tabletop role playing games. Like they're expecting more of a video game kind of
Or movies, or
translation,
movies.
yeah, or a movie kind of translation. I think it's more of possibly a storytelling kind of experience from
Mhm.
it. Um, and in some cases they avoid the combat, and sometimes you see this, like, attacked in some cases, and then others, I've seen others talking about it and saying, well, if 5e's combat scenarios didn't last 2 hours, they might be more open to having combat scenarios during their game session as well. So yeah, I think that, let me see your next thing here. So fast combat, simple descriptions, important choices. Well, yeah, that's the key thing, is that well, if you're talking old school, um, important or meaningful choices. And this really comes from character creation. And that's a big difference, I think, between the two generations. All right. Several generations removed, let's say. But back in the day, we had less choices, and yet with those fewer choices, we were almost forced to role play our characters so that they weren't so cookie cutter.
Yeah, we
And
had
I'll let
to
you chime in on
we
that too, Shadow.
we had to experiment and try and see what we could get away with. We didn't know. We had no idea. There was no preconceived notions like there are today. And our good buddy Shauner, rest in peace, would have said that modern gamers aren't um, spoiled or ruined by a lot of bad Mother May I's and things like that.
Mhm.
Bad habits. That's what I was looking for.
Right.
So I play with a lot of people of you know a lot of different age groups. So it's it's really become uh, incumbent on the DM to really have like a at least a 15-minute discussion with the player and find out what they want, and
Yeah.
then try and fit it in.
Yeah. I you know, one thing that I had pointed out, with several people, explaining it or trying to explain it, is that when you have a very simple character sheet, it's easy to step away from it, and play beyond the character sheet, and that's something that I always push. And
I'm running a traveler game right now, and
yeah,
these are our character sheets, index cards, because that's all you need.
yeah,
You've played traveler, and I've
uh,
got in that game I have people who've never played traveler before,
mhm.
and because this is all they have or all they need, they're playing some of their best selves or characters, if you will, than ever before because they don't. I mean, Traveler is like one of the simplest games of all time.
Yeah,
It seems daunting,
yeah,
but when your character sheet is on an index card, unlike index card RPG, which I'm not a huge fan of, if this is all you need and you can just look at it and go, oh, okay, yeah, and drop it back down on the table, you're good to go.
yeah, and that's absolutely true, Teresa. Is that character creation is an ongoing process. Um, so Shadow played in my AD&D first edition game. He came in, I would say, about 10 months in,
Something like that.
and
They were sixth or seventh level.
yeah, so he came into my game around 10 months in, and he uh, he integrated very smoothly. I will say that he joined into the group and was brought in around like fifth or sixth level as well. I think fifth level. I think you came in at fifth, and so he was there from month like let's say eight or 8, 9, or 10 somewhere in there through month 27, right? So he played for quite a long time with
Yep.
us, and and it was a much slower leveling process than what you'll see in modern tabletop role playing games. No milestones, no anything like that.
Mhm.
I did give them plenty of treasure and that kind of thing where they would certainly gain experience
I
points
don't
a
know about
little bit
that.
quicker, but it's not a well, I wasn't the Monty Hall of
No, that's my job.
magic items,
Mhm.
but certainly coins and those kinds of things.
Sure.
You have to be aware when you're running a D&D first edition that most experience actually comes from loot rather than combat until they start fighting those things that will start giving them you know uh,
Both.
8,000 experience points per session kind of thing. And we had a couple of those
Mhm.
that were really
Couple
really
of
high,
dragons.
but they were fighting ancient dragons at that point too.
Yeah.
So but the character creation thing, and I'm going to bring that back up again, that you're saying is a long process, and that's something that I think is lost in most modern games, especially
Oh,
ones
absolutely.
that have
Because like she
milestones.
says,
Yeah,
it never
milestones.
ends.
uh, Say again, I'm sorry.
It should never end.
Yeah,
The whole process is developing this character, and until you close that book for the last time, like any good story, the character changes throughout
yes,
the story,
yeah,
and your character, especially like if they ever change professions or change alignments or decide to stop being bad guys to be good guys or good guys to bad guys,
hmm,
there should always be a sense of unknown as to what the
yeah,
future holds in store for your character.
yeah. There should absolutely be an evolution for the
None of
characters.
that build nonsense. I'm going to do
Yeah,
this. I'm going to do that. Uh, that's
yeah,
just
yeah.
ridiculous.
The other thing that was really, and again, I made this comment on Eric Tenkar did a video earlier on today, talking about ending a long-standing campaign and how do you go about starting a new one or whatever. And I had mentioned that sometimes it really does feel like when you're immersed into a long-standing campaign, as a dungeon master, I'm thinking, well, I really have caught the lightning in the bottle, with this particular group and whatever. And will it translate into a new place, a new game system, a new genre, or whatever? And and so we did follow up that 2+ year campaign with one that was much shorter, right? And I think that first Castles and Crusades one that we did only
Like three
lasted
or
a
four
couple of
sessions.
weeks.
Yep,
Um,
yep, yep.
and then I tried to kickstart that again, and then we went. I don't know if that was our current one that we just stepped
Yeah,
away from, but that lasted about
6
48
months.
weeks or so, or somewhere around there. So almost a year, just a couple weeks short of a year. Um, and again, that's why I make that comment that it's kind of capturing the lightning in the bottle. Now, the exceptional thing about that group of players, and some of them are still with most of them are actually still with
Right.
me. A couple of them have moved on. Uh, they um, they knew each other's characters, and more
Oh yeah.
importantly, they knew each other's characters' background skills, which blew me away. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Mhm.
there were those professional skills that they barely ever use, but they
The
hey, don't you
secondaries.
know something about your mother was a seamstress kind of thing, and you should know the value of these tapestries based on your background. And that didn't come from that player. That came from other players that saying, "Oh, yeah, wait, you're a scene, your family was in the mercantile business, and you should know about these things." And then, I it just struck me that they not only knew their characters really well, but they knew their companion player characters almost equally well. And
It's a good group. It's
yeah, like I
got
said,
some
I
solid
don't
guys
know if
there.
you put the lightning in the bottle or not. But it is an exceptional group of players, and anytime that we've introduced new players to it, like right now we have Q Cooper in the group there, and even though it's been kind of hard to get that new campaign rolling, it's I think that eventually, once it settles down and gets into a nice little pace, that will
Real quick
generate.
on Cooper. I don't know if he's watching or not. I hope he is. You're in with a good group. Uh, don't feel like you're the new guy. I was the new guy for a long time. I'm still the new guy in my mind. With those guys because they all know each other in the real world and stuff. Just pop in and do your thing, and you know you'll be.
Um, it depends on the game system to ditch some of those things. Like for my newest campaign, I did some classes. Yes, so I told them there'll be an AD&D first edition, no bards, no monks, and no barbarians, no cavaliers, and that's pretty much it. So I took those four things off the table. As far as the races are concerned, no, you can't play a drow. You know, I had
Good for you.
I had one new player, asking, hey, can I play a tiefling? I was like, nope, they're not in AD&D first edition. They're not in Greyhawk. They do not
They're
exist
in the
as
monster manual too for a reason.
yeah, yeah. So I was like, there won't be in they won't be in this, So he decided to be a half orc fighter instead, which is
For
perfectly
like 2 sessions.
fine. So so I can see removing some aspects of the game system. I'm less likely to remove lore because I'm kind of a lore junkie, and I like to have that kind of color the campaign, let's say. So and there should be, like, if you're running your own world, then the lore is your lore. You know what I'm saying? So there's no reason to remove it. But
Exactly.
I like running games. It's like if I'm running Castles, sorry, not Castle of Crane States. If I'm running AD&D and I'm in Greyhawk, if I want to avoid stepping on lore, I'll just make it at a time period that the original didn't cover. So our current one is common year 600, which is beyond, after the beyond, oh, what was it called, not After the Ashes, whatever it's called. It's
No idea.
yeah. I forget what the third installment of it was called, but I'm picking it up where the timelines of the older are already passed, and so you really can't step on the lore as much, but you can insert some of the older stuff into your current campaign, and that's why my campaign is called Shadows of the Past. All right, so some things will kind of start cropping back up again. So if you want to think of it, it's kind of like how the third age of Middle Earth, has the rumblings of the first age and the second age kind of creeping up into it, again. And so that's kind of the tone I'm looking to go for, is that, not all of these things were completely eradicated, during the Greyhawk Wars. And so that's kind of what I'm looking to do. So yeah, I mean, ditching some mechanics like I know my players asked, "Are we gonna do weapon speed?" And I says, "Nah, we probably won't." However, the new Roll20 AD&D First Edition character sheets does have that you can put in weapon speed, but I don't know if it's going to be part of the calculation yet. That's something we will test out and see. If it does the calculation and you're just one click away from utilizing weapon speed, then fine. But I'm probably going to more simplify, um, the initiative system. I'll probably go with Shadow Dark actually, and Shadow Dark's initiative system. Or at the very least, just do initiative once per scene rather than every single round.
Yeah, I
Go
see
back
no
to
point
rolling every single round.
yeah, that's just such a time sink,
Yeah,
and I noticed from some newer games that if you didn't get the first initiative as a player, you sat around the whole round and watched everybody just tear apart whatever it was, and you ended up doing nothing.
yeah,
Multiple, if you didn't, get the first, couple of segments or whatever, uh, there would be nothing to do because the players had already tore everything apart. Just stick with, like you do, you roll at the beginning of the combat and stick with it for the entirety of the
right.
combat. And, if you're slow for some reason, you won't be slow always.
Yeah,
In modern games where everybody's sinking their feet into, initiative and things like that, it's like, just it becomes like a competitive thing within your own party. You should be working as a team, not
yeah,
trying to get the kill because you get the XP. Because in newer games, that's not even how it works. It's just like bragging rights or the right to show off because you're always first.
right.
It's just
Well, one of the things I did during one of our game sessions, I started doing that with one of our AD&D game sessions, was I remember when the party was stretched out. I forget which layer you guys were in, and you were stretched forward, and the attack came from, let's say, the 11 o'clock. And I said, "There's no way that you down at the 5 o'clock, regardless of your role, is going to have an initiative in this." You know what I'm saying? It's like you're
Mhm.
too far stretched back, and you're on the opposite side of the clock, basically. And
Mhm.
so those three player characters are at the front, the middle, and
Mhm.
the end of that double squad, moving forward. They're going to be part of the initiative role in the beginning, and then others can chime in afterwards once they're able to actually move through there. And so, just like when you're doing like surprise or things like that, um, you know, initiative should be situational. And, there should be some situations where, yes, the player characters fail initiative, just because of the way the situation is laid out. There would be no way for them to be able to anticipate or whatever, or they didn't even express that they were looking for signs of anything. You know what I'm saying? And
Or
so,
they're good old fashioned surprised, and
yeah,
You guys go first.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes that's going to happen, and that's just the way it goes. Sometimes you're not going to, the other thing that I did during that was, you know, if you were struggling too much to know what your character was going to do, your character loses that initiative round. I mean, it's just if you're flipping through the book to see what spell you're going to cast, you're not casting something this round. It's like, yeah, no, your character is actually literally looking there and scratching his or her head, or maybe flipping through their travel spell book, trying to figure out, oh, what did I want to, they are disengaged mentally from the combat, and they're absorbed into trying to figure out, what am I going to do next. And what that does, I think, is that it puts the players uh, in the mode of being engaged in what everyone else is doing as well, because then you can alter what you're going to do based on what's going on. And I think that's really important to do. As a game master, you should absolutely encourage your players, coax them, even prod them into, no, you're paying attention to what everyone else is doing, even when it's not your turn, because that's really, really important for them to be engaged. So let's see. My retro clone uses magic missiles melee, so players have to pick and choose when they go. Yeah, that's yeah, and players, like, I think we've often done this too. Players will be like, well, even though I have initiative, I'm going to hold off my attack and see
Mm-hmm.
what happens first, and then I'm going to go. That
Yeah,
kind
I'm
of thing.
constantly with the last couple of games as a fighter. I'm advising the party, let them come to us. Use
Mhm.
your buff spells or whatever like that, and
Yeah,
let them come to us. Because if we charge forward with different movement rates and things like that, we're already in a phalanx
right.
situation with the shields up front. Let them come to us, and into our weapon range, into our arrows, into our spells. Give the clerics and the magic users, if they've got spells that give us an advantage, use those. And then when they get a little bit closer, hit them
Yeah,
with the light.
yeah, and that's an important thing. I think you're a little bit choppy, Shadow, um, and you might have even frozen. So I'll wait for you to re-engage. Yep, I'll let me get him back in here. Okay. Yeah,
Sorry
no,
about
a
that. I
little
don't know what
hiccup.
that was. Another thing, Teresa, like with my group, I run an AD&D game on Sundays, and um, they'll do the party initiative. Someone will roll, add the highest dex bonus. But then I ask the magic users, what are you guys doing to give them the opportunity to tell the party, hey, like if they're going to cast a fireball or a lightning bolt, you don't want to run up and be in the range of the spell, even if the spell is going to take them, a few segments before everybody else goes, and they're wiggling their fingers and doing their thing, and the spell's not going to go off immediately. It gets them into the frame of thought of we should kind of strategic, be a little bit more strategic and know what everybody else is going to do, so that nobody runs into the fireball, or you don't accidentally shoot your buddy in the back because he ran up
Ooh,
in
excuse
front
me.
of the creature that you were aiming your arrows at, and suddenly your buddy's back is in front of that orc you were shooting at. What's
Hey,
up,
Mirador.
Mirador?
Hey, Mirador, if you
We were just
want to
talking about
jump
you.
in, you're welcome to. Anybody's welcome to jump in and join the chat. Mirador is another one of my players.
Yeah, I guess you never heard. You might want to be a little careful with
Uh,
that.
oh, I
Um,
let anybody jump in. If I have to kick them out, I kick them out.
I
But
did that once, and now I'm
yeah,
famous for it.
yeah, I let anyone jump in. I am an open.
Just make sure their camera's on, and
Yeah.
it's a real person and not.
Well,
Well,
yeah, I
anyways.
haven't I haven't come across anything like that yet, or at least if I'm guessing, where you're going with it. But hey. if it happens, it happens. My channel is not for kids. It's like you know,
Yeah, yeah. My channel was definitely not for kids that one night.
yeah, yeah.
Oh boy.
So no, anyone's welcome to join in, and then if I have to, I will block anyone that's just you know any of the Russian sex bots or whatever things like that. Then I'll
No, this guy was definitely a
yeah.
Latino. Just
Okay.
saying.
Um, yeah. So anyway, um, yeah, I mean, so when you're introducing new players to to these older systems, uh, number one, you have to be, you're certainly welcoming. You must be welcoming. You have to, and you have to have some flexibility, but you also need to stand your ground on certain things, right? And just reiterate, that's not like I did in that case. That's not in this particular game system, or that's not, for this particular game world, and then explain why. All right. So that's another thing is that, you're not just going to say no. You're going to say, no, that's not possible. And this is why. Because you need to back it up with an explanation of why it doesn't work or
Mhm.
whatever. Um, Perhaps you can offer other, other alternatives to that. Hey, why don't you consider playing this? This is a character class slash race that is infrequent in my own experience, let's say, and so that might be a lot of fun for both of us to,
Mhm.
you really try to entice them, to think outside of the boxes and come into play that way. It's like, and that goes back to something that Teresa was saying with the modern player when I was talking a little bit about the the MMOification of, or the video game, vacation of tabletop role playing. Um, One of the things that I encountered in World of Warcraft very, very frequently is that the player base basically expects you to have a certain build. All right. And so if you're trying to join a group in one of those epic dungeons or whatever, and you're a fighter, you better have taunt. You better be sword and board or whatever, you better be a tank, and if you don't, because you're role playing your character a different way than what's expected, they're going to kick you from the group. All right. And I ran across that constantly in World of Warcraft, where it's like, wait, you're a fighter and you're dual wielding. You don't even have a shield and you don't have taunt. You're totally useless to us, and when you look at AD&D, for example, and I created a character, for someone else's game, and I was like, well, when I rolled up my character's background, and he was his family was a family of sailors and shipwright and this and that, and I thought to myself, you know what? When I make my character, I'm not going to be, even though I'm a fighter, I'm not going to wear heavy armor. I'm not going to wear chainmail armor if I'm in the water abroad. The most I'll wear is leather. Because with my strength and everything, I could probably still swim in leather armor. So that was number one. Number two, I double specialized in a belaying pin in a club, basically. And when
Mhm.
would you ever encounter anyone, making a fighter character for AD&D and specializing or double specializing in a club that does D4+1? You know what I'm saying? It's not the optimal weapon. You're you're not going to
Nope.
find you're not going to find that many magic items. In AD&D, if you want to double specialize in a weapon and you want to have the best chance of finding a magical version of that weapon, you're going with a longsword, which is like 60% of all magic weapons that are
Mhm.
out there. you know, and
Oh yeah.
and so that's what I'm talking about when I talk about breaking um, that modern perception of what is role playing is that you break outside the cookie cutter, you break outside of the min maxing, you break away from those expectations of what is the optimized character build. I'll let you join in. I'm sorry, Shadow. I was long winded.
No, you're absolutely right. And if you don't, you run the risk of playing a character that's like every other character that's ever been played. Or most. You know, you I don't know about you, but when I make up a character like the one you just described, I want to make up some character that's not the
Mhm.
same
Right.
old. Something that's vastly different, so that even if I die in the first adventure, they're going to remember that guy. Remember that guy who used the belaying pin, or whatever. Just something I mean, most of us old schoolers, we've played 100
Yeah.
characters, so when people talk to me about running fighters that are a certain way, I'm like, I've literally done that 20
Mhm.
times. It's not my favorite thing to
That's
do,
right.
even though I've done it 20 times. I've played 100 characters. Well, the other 80 were magic users or something like that, because that's what I prefer. I want to make a character that's not just fun to play, but fun to be around. Not just the same old tried and true archer or swordsman, or that's why I'm not a big fan of dwarves, because every dwarf character I've ever met has been just like every other dwarf character I've ever met.
Yeah.
They're you know they're literally like the most stereotypical of characters in the entire genre, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned.
Well, they
They're
always
always the
feel
same.
compelled that they have to carry either a battle axe or a throwing hammer. They're always, again, it's just a cookie cutter, very tropish kind of character build
Mhm.
that that sure it started out in tabletop role playing, but it was accentuated in MMOs. It was accentuated in computer RPGs as well. And
Yep.
so it is really important, I think, for you to kind of break from some of those modern day.
You not play against type,
Yeah,
like Drizzt, the chaotic good ranger
yeah,
drow, but there are still enough things you can change
yeah.
up to make your dwarven character or your other character different from everybody else's.
Mm.
Obviously, the person playing it is going to add their own charm and nuances, but there is something to be said about bringing something that at least appears to be fresh to the party.
Um, yeah, I'm checking this one. So I had the choice between making race random on every new character or making abilities random. So I made two abilities random. Um,
Yeah, why would you ever do race random? I mean, there's nothing worse than getting handed a character that you don't want to run.
yeah, um,
If you don't like running dwarves and suddenly you're forced to play a dwarf, uh, you're going to get either a crappy dwarf or a dead
yeah.
dwarf.
If it, I mean, there's certain aspects of it that like I don't mind as a player, and this comes more so from this comes more for from convention play where you're not really rolling your character, you're getting a pre-generated
Mhm.
character, and
Sure.
in in that kind of a scenario, I'm willing to play anything. Um, when I'm rolling up my characters, again, I'm willing to go really old school, you know, 3d6 down the line and see what I can play. Uh, and
Mhm.
again, I can play broken characters, with like terrible
Oh,
attribute
certainly.
scores, and if they die by the second session, it's okay. I'll just roll up a new character. You know what I'm saying? The
Oh,
point is
absolutely.
is to see, well, let's see how long this character will survive with all of these crappy rolls. I had a character one time just recently. I created a character, and the character had 2 3s. That I was like, wow, with 2 3s, it's going to be a really interesting, way to build this character. I mean, I could make the character with no common sense and no intelligence on top of that. You know what I'm saying? So like no intelligence and wisdom, um,
Or Elric.
and then avoid, making charisma the dump stat. You know, but there's other ways that you can do it as a game master too, where you tell them in session 0, before they make their characters, listen, you might see situations where charisma is actually fairly important, in this particular setting. You might have,
Yeah, that's why I one of my higher
yeah,
stats for Bill was actually
yes,
charisma.
yeah.
I wanted him to be a
And in
you know
Augsburg, that was
not
actually very, very important because there's a very not quite a caste system there, but there was certainly a social structure of the entire settings build that was really important. And so that's that's a major point of kind of steering players away from having a dump stat. Now Castle
well
Crusades kind of
unless
eliminates that whole thing because it's all more so built around what your primary and what your secondaries, attribute scores.
I find running a low wisdom score is a lot of
Hmm.
fun as a dump stat. That way you could be
Hmm.
foolhardy, you could be
Yeah,
unwise, just
it's fun to
just
role play it.
clown around a little,
Yeah, taking the agency a
right?
little bit, added realism, also encourages teamwork for optimization. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Isn't teamwork kind of optimization
well,
though?
yeah. Well, it is. It encourages teamwork over optimization. Well,
You see what I'm saying? Because
no,
they're
no,
both
no.
optimization.
I think what she means is that if all of your
It's a
characters
different
are
kind.
practically superheroes, they need less teamwork. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what
Yeah.
she's talking about. Is that
Right, because a lot of my uh, experience has been where it was the optimization of
mhm.
teamwork that got them
Oh yeah,
through, even though their numbers weren't
yeah.
perfect. Because if you, for example, you open the door and you see a bunch of goblins, and instead of running in, you've got a guy on the left, a guy on the right, and a guy in the middle, just wailing on the first guy that comes through those doors. You've optimized the situation to where you've got 3 against every one of their 1, and eventually you just whittle them down, and they can't do a damn thing about it.
So here's a question for you, Shadow. Teamwork equals action economy is what you think. Um,
Um, I, I don't play any of the games that use that sort of action economy thing unless because in D&D you get your move, you get your attack. Um, Sometimes certain characters can get multiple attacks, that sort of thing. For me it's really more about positioning, where, like I was describing in the previous
yeah.
scenario, if your party knows how to do
Hmm.
that, then the world's their oyster.
Coordinating. Yeah, coordinating their
Mhm.
actions and withholding but communicating across the battle area and again, on the player side, focusing on what's going on, even when it's not your turn, is all part of that. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that becomes your meta action economy, let's say, because it's outside of the characters, but you have to role play it. You as a game master have to require your players I'm going to lose the word. You have to declare your actions, and or at least your immediate action, and then You might also even declare and say, well, I'm going to wait, and you're going to yell to the other player character, because these are not things that you're talking about across the table, at least ideally. You're not talking between player and player. You're trying to be in character as much as possible. And so you're not talking in game mechanics. Your players aren't talking in game mechanics. They're talking in the situation that they're in, and try to put it into that.
Take cover,
Yeah, yeah.
stand your
Take cover, do
ground.
this. Hey, you hold off. I'm gonna shoot at that ogre on the left. And you're communicating. So like in the military, we used to say shoot, move, and to communicate. So it's like you have to be focused on what everybody is doing, in that moment, and being ready to shift if you need to, adjust if you need to.
Cor- Corbin, I'm still playing AD&D after 40 plus years. I've played every game out there, and when it comes to fantasy right now, there's another game coming out that I'm working on with the designers. But to this day, AD&D is still king. It was called Advanced for a reason, and everything else, in my opinion, it was either dumbed down for the lowest possible common denominator, or was so overly complex that uh, it was like learning a new job. Becoming a completely different profession in the real world, having to learn like with Pathfinder and that sort of thing. Having as a dungeon master, having to learn all the feats and all the ways they're supposed
Yeah.
to be used and could be used, and optimal usage. When I'm as a DM, I'm never going to be doing that, but I still have to plan for my players using the whatever the latest killer build
Mhm.
is. It's just no. That's medieval fictional fantasy characters didn't didn't think
Mhm.
like that. They were stuck in their profession, and they all weren't identical. You know what I mean? They all didn't take this feat at this level and this feat at that level because there were no feats. They learned whatever they could learn and dealt with it.
Um, this guy thinks AD&D is cooler than BX. He must be going a long way. It's it's different. Number one, I think that
It's pretty
BX is
brutal.
hands down the best to introduce players to. But to me, BX starts to fall apart when you're getting to super high levels, and you should be just shift to AD&D after that anyway. Again, just in my opinion. Um, do I think that there's better game systems than AD&D? Absolutely, but they don't capture that same. This is Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people don't realize that AD&D was closer to white box than anything else, and white box was the original. So it's literally like it's real literally like the second edition of all the D&Ds, and it was the closest to uh, the perfect version in the minds of the creators, because they didn't really work that much on second. They stopped with AD&D because this is the advanced version, and then they were booted from their own company, so they went on and made completely different things. So when you're talking D&D, for me, AD&D is my favorite. I've played BX, and what I didn't like about it was racist class. Um, that to me is basically just telling your players, okay, I'll let you run an elf, but you really should run a human, and that's not the way it should be. Elves and dwarves are better than
Mhm.
humans by all the lore. They live longer, they're stronger, they're faster, they're smarter, etc. But for some reason, since we're all humans playing the game, humans are better. That doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense to me.
Speaking of charisma.
You telling me I could live 400 to 3,000 years, but I'm not better than a
Mhm.
human?
Yeah.
What are you smoking?
uh, So how much should an attribute training cost? Well, AD&D doesn't have attribute training. Um,
Yeah, there's no such thing
there's only a few ways
except
that
for the Cavalier.
your attributes change in AD&D. One, when you when you age
Age.
into the next age category, your attributes will change. Second is by magical items or or magical increases that are permanent increases, most likely. Um, there are ways that you
And then there was the
lose
Cavalier.
attributes permanently in AD&D as well, but there is no
There was the Cavalier, though. If you remember, in the Cavalier class, they could physically train. Uh,
right.
they were
But
assumed to
that's
be
why
trained.
I don't use the Cavalier class because this is an extremely broken class. Um,
Oh,
Yeah,
certainly.
and yeah, so AD&D doesn't have a tribute change training. Um, I don't believe second edition does either. Um,
No.
so you don't start getting a tribute change and I didn't play 5e long enough
What's up, Squirrel?
to see that you do. Now Shadow Dark has a tribute growth based on leveling, but you're not training in it. It's just a chance that you will get attribute growth from a random roll that you make when you level. Um, so yes, that's very common there. Um, even Castles and Crusades doesn't have a tribute training. Um,
No. Quick question. Uh, I don't know how to pronounce your name, buddy. Mostly because it's hard for me to read it. It's
Vader,
really small here.
this one. All right.
Yes,
So
yes, yes. He says, "You're right, but I
oh
don't."
yeah,
Yeah, he says, "You're right, but I don't find it that fun to run high level stuff. But love races class." Couple of questions. Um, don't don't you think it would be fun to run an elven thief or a dwarven thief or a dwarven or elven cleric or even an assassin or something like that every once in a while versus the cookie cutter, all elves to get this, all hobbits get that, and unless you're running like a lot of very short campaigns, I find that the low level stuff seems kind of stale. For me, I run a lot of high level games, always have. For me, the sweet spot is like ninth level and above, not 4 to 7 like so many other people. If you're always running low level stuff, you don't really ever get to run into the domain play where the fighters or the wizards get to build a home and then start attracting, an army or followers or things like that. You might want to try it one of these days. It really was, uh, it was a big part of BX as well, as far as I remember, that, getting to that point where you could build a castle, build a fort, build a temple, where you actually had one place in the world that you could kind of not just call home, but, feel like you wouldn't wake up and your stuff was
yeah,
gone.
yeah. It's just I'm looking at some of these comments as well, at the same time. And yeah, attribute growth is, you know, you can import a certain amount of other game systems into your game, but it should never exceed. It should never get to the point where you're playing a different game. Um, you know,
Right. That was the greatest thing in the Dungeon Master's Guide was literally the afterword that told you to pick and choose the rules you liked, even though Gary later on recanted that, which was a shame because that was literally the best thing he ever wrote. It's your
yeah,
game, and if your players are having fun and good with what you pick and choose, and you keep track of all that, then you're not playing wrong. You're playing the best game you could
right.
play. So, but yeah, if you're taking so much out from other games, literally,
Then you're no longer playing it.
toxic.
Actually, he doesn't contradict himself later. He contradicts himself in the same book, right? So it's like in the in the preface and then And in the epilogue,
Afterward,
he basically contradicts himself to the point, but you can square them both away by taking both and boiling them down to what he's really, trying to inartfully say is that there are certain essentials that make it Dungeons and
yeah,
Dragons. And if you alter those, then you're no longer playing the
you're
same
not playing.
game. And,
Right.
you know, I have now unfortunately, he didn't really list what those essentials were, but he did mention at least two of them. He felt that the level limitations of race were essential because otherwise no one would ever play a human. All right, so that's number one. All right, and then the other thing that he really truly believed was an essential system was, believe it or not, the alignment system, because
Oh yeah.
he believed that Advanced Dungeons and Dragons was designed for you to be playing in a heroic fantasy. And he believed that unless your characters were being played as heroic, good, aligned characters, uh, that you weren't going to capture the essence of what AD&D was meant to be. And yes, you could play evil characters, and he said this numerous times. Sure, you could play an evil character, but it was not going to be a character that lasted very long because essentially the world would eventually come
That's
down upon that character.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Or they would, worst case scenario, because I ran a 20-year evil
Mhm.
campaign, and the worst case scenario is they win.
Yeah, yeah.
They ended up ruling the world, so to speak. And the funny thing was is that they actually got to a point where they realized, oh my God, we should be good after 20 years.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
a couple of things I wouldn't mind hitting up in the comment section here. Giant series was a lot of fun. I never actually got to play the Drow series. We somehow just skipped to the Demon Web
mhm.
pit without doing the D series, which is weird. Um, and if you've got setting specific options like Adventure Conquer King, that makes up for it a
Mhm.
lot. Uh, because most D&D games, even if you picked uh, like Greyhawk or Mistara or something, they kind of had their own logical reasons within their milieu of why things were the way they were. But if you play a lot of games with a lot of players, eventually they're going to come to the realization that elves and dwarves are better in a lot of ways, but they're still not the best. In modern games where there are no class limitations, you still find the human fighter is the most common character of all. Why is that? Because the best fantasy characters were always the human fighter, whether it was King Arthur, Conan,
Right.
uh, things like that. The ones we all know, Robin Hood, they were the big strong human guy who did all the brave stuff. Even though some of my favorites are Fafford and Grey
Mhm.
Mouser, they were split
Yeah.
class, so it's kind of a
Let me just
not a
jump in
fair
and say,
comparison.
Teresa, thanks a lot for all your comments before you head out. You know,
Oh, okay,
really
yeah.
quick pros and cons of fixed HP. Only at first level does a fighter get 10 hit points at the beginning. And then regardless of the type of fighter it is, but then you have the con bonus that's going to include there. And then after first level, they're rolling for HP anyway. So
If she means like the old Arduin fixed hit points, where at first level you have all the hit points you're ever going to get, it's an interesting concept, and will definitely teach your players to fight smart, not
mhm.
hard.
So let's see what we have here. We have I have setting specific options for race as class so that players have more options like the Bounder, which is a halfling ranger, and other things like that. Yeah, I mean, um, there's something that you can get from all of the different systems, and each system has whether it's an addition or totally separate system. um, you're going to find every single one of them has these nuggets that just stand out as being, wow, this is a really cool concept. Um, but again, once you start importing from so many different systems into the one system you're looking to run, you're no longer running that system anymore. You're running your own homebrew that has taken on a life of its own. And yeah, like Shadow said earlier on, the measure was certainly in the past and probably still is to this day. If you're all having fun at the table, I know that drives some people crazy, but if you're all having fun at the table, then you're doing it right. And again, I know that there are some purists out there that will freak out as soon as you say that, but you know
There's no role playing game police coming to your
yeah,
door.
it's like, and I mean, I used to get into this with Shauna as well when he talked about, like my game. And, I was like, well, my players sometimes, especially with people like Breeze, was, I mean, he's just a funny guy, and he was always kind of, and he played a quirky character. And so his character wasn't very serious, and he as a player wasn't very serious all the time. And yes, we broke character, and we had some of our biggest laughs, with some of the things, the antics that went on, both as player characters and players at the table. And
You're making a great point there. Um, when describing Breeze, because I played with him and I miss him. I wish he
mm,
would come back. I wish his life would, allow him to do so. I can't, for the life of me, remember a single thing he did specifically. I'm old, but I can remember him and having him as a player at the
mhm,
table. That was the best
yeah,
part. It wasn't like, remember when you rolled that 20
yeah,
or you did that thing. No, I remember the guy. I remember the
mhm,
person for what he was, as opposed to who he played and what he did. And that to me is more valuable than the total immersion and having a game memorized like it's your favorite movie. I'm
yeah.
never going to be able to
Yeah,
do
he
that.
was a
I
he
played.
was a just to give a unique look at him. He was a kill stealing cleric, right? I mean, it was the oddest thing.
Mhm.
Like, because he was a cleric of an elven deity where the primary weapon was a longbow, he always used a longbow, um, and he always looked to steal the kills, and then that's when he was the what was the first thing that he killed, that he declared himself like, you know demigod
Oh, he killed a
slayer and a
demigod.
demon lord slayer, and this kind of slayer and that kind. It was always the slayer of something, and it was always exaggerated from from the point, because he was a kill stealer. you know he always became the slayer of this thing that was a monumental thing for the party at whatever level they happened to be at. And that was just his quirkiness. And it was, again, we were laughing out of character. We were, some of the players were probably, laughing in character as well with their, things like, hey, come on, Breeze, settle down. We had a lot of we just had a lot of laughs, and,
And that's what
and
it's
that's
that's what it's really all about in the
yeah,
long run.
yeah,
When you get old
yeah,
and senile like this guy, you're not going to be able to remember all the details, but you remember the people. And that's what this game is all about. It's about hanging out with your friends and being the star from time to time, as opposed to participating in another activity where things are less social and more physical, if you will, maybe like sports and things like that. It's the people that drive the game and bring you
yeah.
back.
If anyone else wants to jump in as well, I'm going to put that link up there, and let's take another look
Hey,
at
Squirrel, what are you doing? Why don't you grab the link? Squirrel's a great guy.
yeah, Squirrel,
And I agree. 2E was uh,
underrated.
had a lot of innovations to it. I absolutely love what they did with the thief, and I do like what they did with the cleric. I hated what they did with the
Hmm.
ranger, the druid, the assassin, the bard. I'm a big fan of the original bard. I've got 2 players in my group now trying to become the old-fashioned bard the hard way. But if you really want to know what second edition did that really irritates me the most, take out your monster manual treasure tables and look at how the numbers are identical except all the treasure was cut in half.
Hmm.
And me, I'm a Monty Hall dungeon. I give out a lot of treasure because a lot of treasure opens up more doors than poverty. So I don't mind handing out piles of treasure because it lets my players come up with new things to drive the game instead of it being a railroad. It's more sandboxy because now they have options. They want to build a castle, they want to build a bridge, they want to invest in their spells or whatever. I don't like keeping my players poor, and that's what it did. It beefed up all the hit points. Well, not all the hit points, but it beefed up all the monsters and then took away half the treasure. So as a player, and I wasn't a player until 2 years ago. Uh, Even as a DM, I hated that. It was just like they're working twice as hard for half as
Yeah,
much. Yeah, that doesn't really make it better, does it? Makes it harder, but it doesn't make it
yeah,
better.
um, yeah. So there you go, Squirrel. That's that's the that's the font. You just slash sarcasm after the
And I, I,
comments,
I caught that
and then
squirrel.
you're good.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
caught that
Um, so
because it's right there in the name. It's a game, and if you're playing a game that you hate, find another
yeah,
game.
or if you need to change so many rules in the game, then find another game. You know, and I used to say that when I was playing 5e and the game masters that I was playing with in some cases, they were removing everything that made it 5e. And I was like, then you might as well just run, AD&D first or second edition. Like if you want some of these feats, but not all these other ones, you want to get rid of the death saves, you want to get rid of the short rest, you want to get rid of this and that and the other thing, then you're not playing 5e anymore. You might as well just play one of the older editions that didn't have all of those bells and whistles.
Yep,
And
that's funny. I didn't know that.
which one? Cut my D&D teeth on second edition.
No, no, no. What you
Oh,
were saying, I didn't know there were people, newer people trying to cut all that
oh
stuff
yeah, yeah,
out.
because
Not probably
they
not like
recognized right away. And I mean, Mike Merles just recently said it too. They recognized that the combats were just taking too damn long,
yep,
and they
yep.
just there it was almost impossible. Like people, and I'm going back to when it first released before Tosh's and all of that, because I certainly wasn't playing it
Mhm.
after that point. But they were like, no, this is just not. It's not challenging enough. And one of the best best games of 5e that I played in, I was playing a magic user and he got torn to shreds by sharks. I mean, it was like boom 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 dead, and I was like, holy cow. And there was no, some of the other players were like, well, doesn't he get death save? Oh no, I don't use death saves. What I'm saying, it's like, he took massive
Mhm.
amounts of damage. He's drowning now, and he had maybe one
You're
round
bleeding
to
to death.
survive. And since we were all in the water, nobody was getting to me. And it was like, all right, he's dead. Boom. And and I was like, I was perfectly fine with that. And I was like, all right, I'm going to re-roll a character. And then others were chiming in and were like, oh no, well, there's ways to bring your character back. I was like, really? I was like, I never played any D&D that was that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
free.
I
I
don't do
says,
that either. Without death in on the
yeah,
line, you're just playing a
yeah.
video game.
I was like,
And real quick, uh,
yeah, there was just no way.
go.
I was like, no. I was like, oh no, well, you can go to a cleric and a cleric can do. I was like, I was like, I forget what level I was. It was still fairly low level, and I was like, why would a cleric raise a or bring back to life a third level character? You're of no importance whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yep.
it's not something that they're going to waste that kind.
Even a 15th level character resurrection, in mythology or even religion, there's only like a few tiny examples of that, it being the most powerful of all
Yeah,
magic. Why would you just willy-nilly it? I once saw 4 resurrections in one game, in 3E, I think it was, and I'm just like, I'm
yeah,
out. This is ridiculous. There's no threat. There's no
yeah.
danger. You just get a pause. You're put in the penalty box and you come back out fresh as a daisy. Real quick, Paul, you're absolutely right. But what 1E's art had was something that no other art will ever have, and that's the charm of the true struggling artists who were doing their damnedest just to convey an image that, you know to this day you cannot find a single piece of art that says what the hold on, let me get the
Yeah.
picture real quick. At the back of the monster manual, there's this classic piece of art that I know Bloodworth is very familiar with.
Oh yeah.
I mean, nothing says it
Yeah.
like that. And if you want to, get funny, the fighter being held by the magic user because the rust monster is
Hmm.
coming at him. The comedy, there was no comedy like that I am aware of in any of the 2E books. It was all pretty
Yeah.
serious, which is fine, and for a lot of people that's probably better. But the early editions knew they were creating a silly game of make
Hmm.
believe, and so they never took themselves too
Right. Right. Right.
seriously. And I think that's something that over the years has been forgotten, because I think, to be honest, I don't think a lot of newer players ever actually played make believe in their backyard or their front yard with their friends, because they were too busy doing this.
Yeah.
You know, that's where it all stems
Hey,
from.
Mercurius, how's it going? And thank you for the gifted membership for Stellar Steven. So, as always, Stellar
Nice.
Steven, you are, if you're on, if you're on, actually, you're welcome to join my Discord. Let me know that you are a new member, and I will give you membership access, which means that you can jump in any of my games if I, have an open slot in the game. And yeah, like I said, you're welcome. You're welcome to join in, and that's the same thing for everyone else here. If you're not, if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please consider subscribing. Um, and
Mhm.
in the opening scene, I also have a Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. That was on the opening, and you'll see it on the closeout as well. And then there's my Discord. So everyone is welcome to join my Discord, and that is always in the comments section, or I'm sorry, the description of all of my videos. So you're welcome to join my Discord. Jump in there, tell them, hey, I'm coming over from the live stream, and I will log you in as a player, and you'll be able to jump in there. All right, let me bring on Squirrel. Hey, how's it going?
Squirrel, what's happening, bro?
Hey guys,
Oh,
good seeing you.
Oh, I heard you now. All right, there was like a slight delay.
Duly noted.
Yes, yeah. Now I can hear you. So let's see. Did I need access on the Discord to jump in any games I donated to subs during the anniversary show? Yeah, you can jump in. So if you're in there and you're not, you don't have a role, just let me know. Let me put up the Discord link in case anybody wants to join in on that right now. And yeah, Paul, if you're not already there, I will certainly give you the role so that you can do that.
How's my sound now?
Oh yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, no, there was just like a slight delay.
My laptop was still probably slow loading up. I just turned it on.
Yeah, let me get the Discord invite. Well, there it is. Invite people.
So what you been up to, Squirrel?
Oh, just relaxing,
All right,
painting
so
minis.
so this invite
That's really
is
about
going
it.
to
I'm
be
just
good
about-
for 7 days. So there is the Discord invite, and that'll be good for 7 days. So any of you can just cut and paste it or whatnot. But that's a Discord invite. So Paul, jump in on there, and as soon as I see you, I will send you a friend request, and then I'll be able to attach roles to you. It works a lot easier, faster that way. So I'll be looking in general chat if you jump in now and see. And if you have a different name on Discord, just let me know here, and I will be able to identify you there, and that'll be easier too. So yeah, you can jump in on any of my games where I have openings. Like currently, I'm up to 7 players for my new AD&D First Edition campaign, but so far 2 have not really come back, at the moment, and so yeah, I would certainly leave a space open for you.
What night is that?
What day? I'm looking at Fridays. Now I'm trying to Shadow. I'm trying to keep it with people who have never played AD&D First Edition, before. So I'm trying to have it where people are going to come in and have a new experience. So I know Mirador had asked the same thing, and I was like, I'm really trying to open this up for new players.
That's a fantastic idea,
Yeah,
actually.
it's
My
yeah. So and plus I don't want to oversaturate anyone with me, and my way of running things I mean, you guys are in my game on Tuesday night, and then if that game does become a regular Friday night, like every week thing, right now I'm just trying to do it bi-weekly until it gets started. But if that becomes a weekly thing, then and I think you run something on Friday nights, right?
I'm in Bo Paints Minis GURPS game on
Yeah. So
Fridays,
it's
Nice.
and my dance card is just about
yeah,
full. I've got one last spot that I'm saving for DM Beelzebubba's Wretched Space game because I love the Red Rooms. Everything they've done
yeah.
is just pure gold. Even if I don't like the genre, it's just they wrote the greatest Western of all
You
time,
do good work.
and it's literally uh, just Miguel's attention and love for the genres that he covers is just unparalleled right now.
Definitely.
I got you, Paul. I am giving you. Where is it? I give you both. So you now have player and member. So you'll be able to jump in now, and anything I'll have you tagged as both. And yeah, since you gave donations out in the past, you are certainly welcome to join in as a member. All right, let's see. So Squirrel, sorry, I'll jump in on you now. I
No.
was taking care of some business.
Oh, no
So how you
worries.
been? I haven't spoken to you in quite a while.
Yeah, I've been well. I had past almost 3 weeks off of work, been back home, just relaxing, painting my miniatures, Organizing the basement slowly, going through books I'm getting rid of, clearing out some real estate on some shelving, so to say, and
Cool.
What are you getting
that's
rid of?
it. Well, I'm making a list. I'm getting rid of quite a bit.
Well, you know me, the avid collector that I
Yeah.
am.
No, I'm gonna.
Please send me a list.
Yeah, I'm gonna send out a list to, even Bloodworth, whoever, all the YouTube pals per se, and then it'll be like a 90-day wait, and then whatever's left, I'm just gonna donate it to the local game shop, and hopefully they can use it.
Oh, that is
So
so
if there's
Yeah.
cool.
anything you guys
Um,
see, including you,
Sure.
Monsieur Bloodworth, if you see something on the list and you want it, you shoot me your address, private message, and I'll mail it out. No charge. Take it.
oh, I can't just
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
stuff for free, man.
I'll
Gotta pay,
exchange
gotta
stuff if
pay,
you
gotta pay.
want. Yeah, I'm the same way. You know.
Yeah,
Well, I'll send you the bill for the shipping. How
no,
about that? But I
because I would just take it all. I would just say, just send it all to me. Because I'm greedy like that. Even if I mean, I've got literally like 4 copies of the Player's Handbook, and I'm looking for more.
yeah,
No,
there's
I
certain.
will.
Uh,
Yeah, I will certainly exchange things with you too if you want anything
Yeah,
like I
whatever. Yeah,
have.
I'm sure the goodness will be passed along and passed
Yeah.
around. I'm just I'm happy to give it to folks that would enjoy it and maybe pass it along or rather than just dump it somewhere per se.
Right.
You know what I mean?
yeah, I won't. I promise I won't eBay it.
Why?
One of the reasons why I have so many books is because I'm opening a shop, and I want to have extras for players, and I want to have a set of AD&D books for my son when he goes off to college or into the military or whatever he's going to do. I want to make sure he has the bare minimums, so that he can just like, okay, I got 3 books, we can play some D&D.
Yeah. No, that makes
Because
sense.
D&D is, especially in college and the military, D&D couldn't be more popular in those
Right.
areas.
Oh, for sure. They usually are, or at least they were for quite some time.
Yeah, and hopefully it'll stay that way. Our men and women in uniform don't get a lot of breaks, and when they do, they don't often get to do what they want. So
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I must have been the anomaly. All the years that I was in the military, no one in my unit was playing any role-playing games.
how long were you in?
I was in active duty for 18 months, and then the rest of the time was all reserve, and I never did IRR. So the rest of my 8 years was reserve, and full summer times. I never did just the 2 weeks in the summertime. I did 2 months every summer, and no one in my unit that I know of was playing any role playing games. I mean, now this was from 90 to my entry into the service was started in 90, but I didn't actually go to training until almost 91. So it's like I didn't start basic training until November. But I drilled with my reserve unit. That was going to eventually be my reserve unit. From July to through October, and then when they gave us the option to leave active duty, then they said, well, you can tack on another 6 months of IRR to my overall enlistment. So I actually did 8.5 years for it, but I never did the IRR. I just made it all reserve and just extended my reserve time. And no one played. I mean, we played dice, we played cards, we played PlayStation, like up the yin yang. We played PlayStation. But no one that I know of in my units were playing games like that. Now my unit was a top-heavy unit. I was in a headquarters unit at the brigade level, so and virtually everyone were police officers, because it was a military police unit, and so I didn't have that many people that were, first of all, like early 20s, like my age, and most of them in my section were older, like Vietnam vets, like older, kind of thing. And
Mhm.
everybody was very, very top heavy, you know.
But you'd already played prior to being in the service, right?
Yeah, I played from basically from 78 or 77, 78 all the way through until 89, so just before I entered the service, so I was still playing up through 89 once my friends went off to college and whatnot, or finished up college and left, no longer played. But and then that was the thing with D&D, and I think people don't give this aspect enough credit, is that when the Satanic Panic had less to do with any kind of drop off in, let's say, Dungeons and Dragons, than did console games really upping, upping up,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
that. I,
computer becoming the home PC was all happening at the same time, and there were probably more people left from playing tabletop role-playing games to console RPGs
absolutely.
that I just don't think it's recognized enough. It's like if there were any real drop off,
Real quick
yeah,
question: have either of you two picked up the Time Magazine 50th anniversary of D&D?
No.
no,
You really should. It's Time Magazine, so I figured it was going to be full of a lot of, stuff. And I gotta admit, I'm reading. I'm only on like page 30 of a really nice Time Magazine that's kind of expensive, but it was a gift, so I'm relishing the work that they actually did and the love and respect that they actually put into it and the chronology. And I just finished the Satanic Panic segment of that, and I was I grew up in California, so I saw a lot of the things that people were afraid of, that most people I know never encountered, like some of the actual Satanism in the
No.
hub. There were a lot of witches and Satanists and things like that playing it, and uh, it seems to me, in my experience, everybody I know, they never encountered anything but the fear and not the real weirdos playing the game. Okay, and even then, 30, 40, whatever it is, years later, there are more weird aspects in D&D, like we were talking earlier with the tieflings, which were literally the Cambion and Alu demons and
Yeah.
devils, right? And now people want to play them more than anything else. Anybody find that ironic?
Yeah, that's I noticed that a while back. It's like, what the heck? Everyone was so spooked, and now we got all this stuff, and it's like nothing. Nobody bats an eye. I mean, just weird.
Right. I'm actually looking for that. There was a pamphlet that was printed about the panic by a church group. I'm trying to actually find one of those pamphlets because I know they're really hard to find. Just because I want to see what they were saying and see if, were they right or were they wrong, kind of thing. Because there's a lot of great cultural, benefits from this hobby,
Yeah.
as opposed to what they were worried
Yep.
about. And what they were worried about became normalized and kind of in your face. It's kind of weird,
Yeah. I know.
ironic, I
Yeah. I
guess.
never understood it, but I thought it was silly, but you know,
Well, I mean, from a religious perspective, I can understand why they would worry, and I never had those problems or those issues or whatever. I found it incredibly uh, helpful in my growing up. I'll be come out of my shell and things like that, versus lighting candles and doing all that weird
Yeah.
stuff. Um, but if you get a chance and you run across a copy at the supermarket, you might want to grab it. Uh,
Yeah, I'll take a look at it. I mean, it's on Amazon.
oh, okay, yeah, it's definitely there's I didn't know Gary was a shoemaker.
I told you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never heard that before. And other little tidbits of trivia that are interesting, and of course it's got this really neat timeline of products. When this product came out, throughout the years, and I'm like, that alone made it worth the price of admission for me, because I'm always like trying to remember what year a certain book or module, or when did Greyhawk come out, and now it's all sort of mapped out for me. So that was kind of interesting. But like I said, I'm only on page like 30,
Yeah.
and I've still got like 40, 50, 70 pages to go. But I think for those of us who've been in the hobby since, like, when did you get into it, Score?
I started playing about 87.
Okay. I started playing 79, 78 or 79. Bloodworth said he started 77, 78. Um, we could have only gone back a little bit further, because 74, there was no way I would have ever come across it or been able to make sense of it,
Yeah.
at less than 10 years old,
Yeah.
without, grown up help. And even then, that's what drives me crazy is, I picked up my DMG and I was 12 or 13. And other than some math, that I hadn't gotten to because I just wasn't old enough yet, everything in there was easily digestible, and probably helped me learn a lot of other things in school later on, because I had actually played, and read the DMG and learned all these ideas, these concepts, these facts and figures, etc. Versus where we would be had we never gotten into this hobby.
Yeah. Who knows?
It probably wouldn't have been good for me. I know that.
Yeah, there probably would have been some serious, well, definite left turns per se in life. That's for sure.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, I don't know about serious, but the road would have been bumpier.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I can only see it on. I guess Time Magazine doesn't have their own website.
Really?
At least I wasn't finding it, but I did find it on. It's on eBay as well. Yeah,
Okay.
so it's on eBay. You can get it for like about 16, 18 bucks on eBay. So plenty of places you can get it.
Yeah, I'll look into it.
One of my good friends sent it to me.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I'll see if I can find it on in a bookstore.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. Normally, I saw a lot of 40th anniversary, 25th anniversary
Mhm.
stuff. I'm like, I've been there almost the whole time. I don't need the special edition, this or that. But I was really surprised. They really did, at least the first part of the book. They really did a factual, concise. This is all the things that you know the whole concept of
Mhm.
leveling up, not just in games like video games and things like that, but even in the corporate world, when they talk about leveling up and going to the next level and things like that. That all goes all the way back to
Yeah.
1974. So many little things that that D&D influenced, and most people would never even think
And that's
twice.
why, getting back to the original subject of the stream is it's why I want to introduce new players to it. Not only so that they can actually see it. I'd also like to um, I'd also like to subvert some of um, the lower expectations that you know um, that some of them were led to believe about
Hmm.
AD&D First Edition as well. So I want to dispel some of those misconceptions about it. Um, I want to further explain through experiencing it, why certain mechanics are the way that they are. Um, want to show that, like some of the things that people worry about or complain about, AD&D First Edition, like let's say the strength modifier difference between male and female. It's like it really doesn't come up that often. It's like
Nope.
I think I've only encountered it. Um, it's not that common to have an exceptional strength fighter to begin with. What I'm saying? It's like,
No.
and then you have to roll what above like an 1869, to exceed the maximum strength of a female fighter in that
And
case.
even then, think about this. As much as they complain about that or whatever, that only existed for rolling up a first level character. Once your female fighter found a pair of ogre
Yeah, well, yeah,
gauntlets,
that's
it's
yeah,
no
it's not
longer
even an
even an
issue,
issue, is
right?
it?
And it's like, but even then, I know Gary later on said that he wouldn't have put that rule in. Um, I guess he got so worn down from the complaints
That's all
about
it could
it
be. That's literally.
that he said, oh, it was probably unnecessary to begin with. Um, but probably because of out of experience, it just didn't come up all that often. You know,
Why would it? Why
Yeah.
would it? I mean, I don't know about you, but I was one of the exceptions, and I had a lot of female players, and it was 1 in 10 that even wanted to play a
yeah,
fighter. They wanted to be the druid, the magic user, or the thief. That
yeah.
was it. They didn't even want to be clerics. I to this day, I have never run into a female who played a cleric. Thief? Oh my God,
I'm trying
all
to
the
think
damn
of
time.
myself. No, I haven't. Um, I don't recall.
Well, other than Lee, she
Well, she
plays,
played a druid. She didn't play a
hands-on campaign.
cleric. Oh no, she
Right,
did. She
right, but
did.
she does play.
For briefly she played a fighter, a dwarven cleric.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
in that short Castles and Crusades.
Oh yeah, the like 3 or 4 session with the kobolds in the
Yes, yes,
warehouse.
yes. That was the only
Okay.
time. So yeah, you're right. Leah did play a female dwarven cleric for a very short time.
Okay.
But that campaign, I don't know why that campaign didn't take off. Uh,
Oh, I know why it didn't take off.
was that the one with?
Because yeah, because you were getting a little burnt.
No, no. There
Burnout.
was
Yeah.
something about it.
I think
There
you.
was something about it that it wasn't. There was something about it that just wasn't meshing with. I think it was too close. It was too close to the AD&D campaign. I think the
You think
location was too close to it. It was the
because
players were too fresh from the AD&D campaign that it was just.
you think so?
I saw it as like a rehashing of the
Because
AD&D
it was
campaign.
also the same time. It was also around the same time that you, me, and OGGM and I forget the other guy. We were playing either trying to play the V&V game or what was the other here? Vigilante City
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. It seemed like you were like you wanted something really, really fresh and
Right.
new, and it wasn't
Yeah,
cutting it.
that's why when I did the Castles and Crusades that time, I think it was just too. It was too close because it was just slightly north of Yeomanry where we were at, and
And the same
it was
group.
just mirroring even with the addition of the OGGM who was new to that group of play, it just wasn't meshing right. Just poor timing for it. Yeah, that the reason why the Vigilante City game didn't really mesh with us because I saw the flaws in that game system. To be honest with you, I,
Well, it is an index card
yeah, there wasn't
RPG,
enough to it to
but
for
you know
the
what?
characters to truly be superheroes. You know,
I really liked it for a class-based superhero game. I really enjoyed the heck out of it. I'm glad I didn't buy it, but I really enjoyed the hell out of it. I like the art. I
yeah, the
like
art and
the
all of that
feel
stuff
to
was
it.
great. It's just that I don't know, it just wasn't it
It,
just wasn't
it,
fleshed
it,
out enough.
yeah, it needed a little bit more, but I got to tell you, um, if somebody started that up, I would definitely play it
Yeah,
if I got a chance to. I really like the classes and all the different things they got by level. The only thing I didn't like was that it topped out at 10th level, and I'm like, oh, this is a 6 month game, and we're
yeah.
done. You know what I mean? XP was easy to get, and 10 levels, okay, maybe a year.
And
You know,
the time
if you
slot, I forget
stretched
what
it,
time slot we were playing that in too.
early mornings
That was early morning. Yeah,
for
and
me. For
I've
me,
always struggled with early morning games. They just don't happen.
yeah.
You know, they just haven't been able to get one to go and last more than like 8, 10 sessions. They just fall apart.
That's a real thing right now. That's the other thing you got to worry about with bringing this hobby to the new audiences is the average video game is 60 hours and they're done and they're on to a new game.
Right.
The average RPG is 6 to 8 sessions, they're on to a new
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to find a brand new great completely different
Hmm.
thing, whether it be a video game, a role-playing game, any other activity in the world that especially now that can totally engross you in that quick. Suddenly you see this thing and you're like, I am all
Yeah.
in. Whatever it is, I want to be in it. Versus back in the old days when we didn't have a lot of TV or movies, to be all in for. We didn't have other than being in a like a little league or playing sports. You didn't have anything that you could just like fully immerse yourself in, other than a book, and then you were done. You read, maybe all four of the Tolkien books. Okay, now what?
Yeah.
Right.
This was that one thing that could engross us 24/7. I remember, I don't know about you guys, when I was a youngster, like before bed, I'd be thinking, like trying to relax, go to sleep, but I'd be thinking about my next
Oh
game,
yeah, same here.
what I was going to do. I could be on the bus or doing something that I didn't like, and I could just instantly in my mind just go, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I'm going to make this trap here and whatever.
Yep.
My character's going to go buy this and that. It fully, totally, you know, discombobulate yourself from the real world and instantly go into this fantasy world, where you're whether you're building it or playing in it, you could just completely go off the deep end in your own mind and have something to do, and everybody else would be like, why aren't you bored?
Yep.
Well, because I
I
got
got
this
stuff
thing.
on my mind. Yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, today there's just a lot, like you were saying, just a lot of added distraction, entertainment, etc. A lot of the dopamine roller coaster going on with the internet and the
Mhm.
scrolling and this and that, and video games and all that, which is, yeah, they're all fun, but it's the time.
Fleeting. They're just fleeting,
Yeah,
though. At least with this hobby, even in sports, every year it's a whole brand new ball game, so to speak. Pardon the
Right.
pun.
Yep.
And you forget about the previous year. It's gone. But last year's RPG game, if we're still in the same campaign, all that stuff's still fresh and relevant.
and it's growing.
And exactly.
Yep. No, I agree.
Okay, guys. Actually, I'm seeing it's coming up on 10 o'clock. So
I gotta go
I'm
too.
going to wrap
but
this thing up. So, guys, thanks a lot for the conversation and everything.
Pleasure.
Shadow, I will see you, throughout the days, leading up to Tuesday. We should have no problem running Tuesday. I don't have any more pets to pass away. So that's a good thing.
So sorry about
And
that, man.
looking forward to that. Looking forward to kind of jump starting that new campaign. New game system, and should be a lot of fun. Squirrel, great seeing you again. So, yep.
Thank you.
Always.
Yeah, let us know when you post that list up there. Definitely check it out. And like I said, I'm
Anything
willing
else you
to
do?
swap stuff out too. If I have anything in duplicate that you want to get your hands on.
Yeah. Do that. Make a like a list of things you want to
Yeah.
trade. That you're
Well, I
stuff that
have
you're
all
looking
of the I have the Adventures Dark and Deep first edition now because I got second edition. So
I got a
I don't
good
need the first
handful.
edition books anymore.
I got a good
and-
handful of the first editions.
Yeah,
They're
and I'm
nice.
still
He does
looking-
good work. Joseph Block does good work.
Yeah, oh yeah, he does awesome work. Yeah, awesome work. I'd like to get around to running that system as well, but I just, I've met him so many
I've heard good
times, and he's a
things.
great guy. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to support you by, buying the second edition, even though I had the first edition. It took me so long to get the monster manual for the first edition too, and now, it's like I don't have the shelf space for everything that I have, so I'm looking to do giveaways and whatnot
Yep.
with that as well. I'm going to give away quite a bit of stuff once I hit, once the channel hits 4,000, which I'm kind of approaching. I'm almost at 3930.
Man, you're getting there.
So
Awesome.
getting close.
Yep.
And then I will do a bunch of giveaway kind of things, do raffles and such. So anyway,
Yeah, I'm working on the same thing, trying to get to 1,000. I just broke 905, and then I'll be giving away plastic, not
I
books.
know
I got way too many
I still
pictures.
have you on my featured channel list. So and
Appreciate that, man.
Squirrel, I can do the same for you as well. I will.
Yeah, let's get this guy up
Yeah,
to
I'll get you up
1,000.
to try to get you up there, and
I appreciate it.
yeah, I like to spread them around and everything. So I will
Absolutely.
see who. I just removed somebody from my thing because the person hasn't been very active at all, and
Yeah,
I
I'm
like
not.
to try to spread them out a little bit. And once channels become big, I don't like to have them as featured anyway. So I'm going to try to keep everybody that's featured is going to be under 1,000 until you hit 1,001, and then I'm kicking you off. Now
There you go.
I will,
Hey, that's fair. At least you get them,
yeah.
over the hurdle.
Monetized or whatever.
Once you get monetized, then you're all right. You're gone now.
Now you're competition.
Yeah.
I see how you are.
So anyway,
I appreciate that.
yeah, guys, you all have a good one, and yeah, I'll make that change sometime
Happy
tonight. I have
trails,
to go
guys.
put my daughter's car away. So that's another thing. That's one of my chores. All right, have a good one. Take care.
Happy trails.